What kind of coach are you going to be? You're going to be the guy that just throws them out there, just so, like some of those PE teachers that just roll out the balls and just whoever makes it to the end of the season. You're going to be the coach that drops 10 kids in a funnel. You run them like crazy. 4 of them come out and win your 4x4, your 4x1, where you have 2 hurdlers that make it to the state meet. Everybody thinks you're a hurdle genius, but you've got 6 or 7 kids strewn in the gutter with stress fractures and injuries, or they quit because they couldn't handle the workload. Can't train everybody the same. Let's look at systems versus philosophies. I know a lot of coaches who have great systems. Systems succeed and fail for the same reason. They succeed because they're rigid. Nobody can go left or right. But they also fail because they're rigid. And I already talked about the funnel concept. You drop everybody in this funnel at the top, and you just pound everybody the same way. And what comes out the bottom is usually the story of your success. But you know what? Only a few come out at the bottom. A system leaves no room for individuality. You're really not going to be able to train a kid a little differently. I had a quarter miler who could not run more than 40 seconds at practice. If he did, his back hurt. So we'd run a lot of 300s. We'd run a lot of 30-second runs. We'd run 180s. And he ended up running 46 in his second year after being a 48-8 guy coming out of high school. But I spent my freshman year with my system pounding him out and doing everything that I always believed at that time was the best way to get your quarter miler to the finish line. And once I started to train him based on what he brought to the table, he got better. These systems are dependent upon the compliance of the athlete, not the creativity of the coach. I know coaches who've been coaching exactly the same way for a long time. Just because you've been coaching 30 years don't mean you've been coaching 30 years. It means you've been coaching 1 year 30 times. So there's no creativity. You're not out there really trying to make this kid better. All you're doing is giving them workouts. Listen, if I want to work out, I'll go to 24-hour fitness. I'll go to Bally's. I'll go to Gold's Gym. If I want to work out. But if I want to train, that takes some creativity on the part of the coach. You need to sit down and work this stuff out. Systems succeed and fail because success is based on holding true to the plan and not deviating from the plan. The plan runs the show, not the coach. Failure is assured due to a dogged determination to see the plan through, hell or high water. Do the kids succeed because of the plan, or are they just too good for the plan to mess them up or to hurt them? Those of you who know Jim Ryan once ran 40 800s. Yes, I said 40 800s. Jerry Lindgren, the great distance runner, still holds the indoor record for 2 miles at 8:42. Indoors in 1966. 1964. I used to do some Ryan workouts. My high school coach gave me 4,400s to do. But he said, well, you're not as good as Ryan, so we're going to have you do 2 sets of 20. We'll give you a little break in between. And I was in bed sick for 3 days. Couldn't run a step. Missed 3 days of school. Couldn't run. It was too much. They just read it in a book. They were coaches. They got their teacher credentials from Emporia State in Kansas, and they were big Bob Timmons fans. But they didn't know that Timmy did a lot of things that we eventually relate and connect to Ryan after he had coached Ryan for a while. Ryan didn't start out running 4,800s. Timmy trained him and figured it out. And he trained Ryan in an individual way. We sometimes look at workouts, and we look at the workouts, and we only look at the best workouts that a guy does. But we don't look at the process. We don't look at where that kid, where that young woman came from when they hit their level of greatness. So that's the mistake that systems have, is I don't want my kids to be good in spite of me. Again, I've said this before. I want them to be good because of me, because I did everything in my power to make it get there. Coaching philosophies are far more successful because they rely on being liquid and adaptable. And you must adapt or die. The coach that has a philosophy is not handcuffed by the plan. The plan is merely a template to work from, a baseline. The performance qualities of the athlete dictates the program. If my kid can't run 10 meters per second, then I've got to figure out a way to take his 9.8 meters per second and get the most out of it. So that means I'm going to have to stretch him out. And I've got because he's not going to be fast. I might have a kid that that can run 10.5 meters per second. My 9.8 may still beat him because we've got to do other things. The 10.5, I know I can rev him up. I can do this. I can do the short end work. I can really make him somebody. And the other kid, I might have to do a little bit more special endurance work. We may have to run a 600 coming through the quarter in 55. Give him 90 seconds, and then he's got to run over the 300 hurdles. Run the last 200 of his 300 hurdle race to see if I can get him done. That might give him the toughness and the meanness to make him good enough to go after my boy that's got 10.5 meters per second, and they may show up and end up at hurdle 8 at the same time. But if I train my 9.8 meters per second the same as my 10.5, it's not going to work. And vice versa. If I train my 10.5 like my 9.8, it's not going to happen. Philosophies are not derailed by illness or injury. You expect these things to happen. And you don't pull your hair out when it does. You got to be ready for things to happen. And they're going to happen. Listen, I've never met a kid or a great athlete that didn't get hurt. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get nicked up. However, injury is something different. That's why if your kids are hurting, they got to let you know. You better make them know that you got to know. Because if they're hurting, you can take them to the trainer. You can give them rest if you don't have an athletic trainer or they can't go to their doctor. I'm going to disclaim for a second. Don't tell anybody that I said this. But don't send your kids, if they get a little nicked up at track practice, to general practitioners, because the GP doctors are just general guys that see the babies every day, and mom and dad and uncles, and they treat a lot of stuff. And they treat stuff by saying, take 2 weeks off. No, that guy's crazy, especially if it's April or May. But you're not going to allow it. You got to be prepared to do certain things. That's why I always ask my kids how they're doing. And it's not a rhetorical question. I ask them, if you're doing okay, I need to know so that I can make a difference to the workouts. I got to change and modify the workouts. Instead of running really fast today out of the blocks, I'll put the blocks on the grass. We won't run in spikes, and we'll just do some accelerations. Just work on some mechanical things. Let's just hit some positions. I'll put some tape on the ground, and I'll just say, okay, let's just push, push, push. How you doing? Okay, coach. Yeah, my hamstrings are still okay. Let's do another couple one. All right, how you feeling? You know what, coach? I'm actually loosening up. I'm feeling much better. Okay, warm down, go home. All right? Philosophies are prepared to degrade or upgrade the plan to suit the situation. Systems, you can't degrade or upgrade. You can't cut back on the program or upgrade it. Systems are not prepared. Listen, a coach that says, okay, we're going to run this, this is our plan, this is what we're supposed to do, and all of a sudden you got this kid planned to run 39, 38.5 at the end of the season, and he drops a 37.97 in April. What are you going to do? You know what most coaches do? They just train the kid harder, not realizing that a huge PR like that needs rest and regeneration. But most people get greedy. When they see a big bomb like that, they're seeing stars and gold medals at the state meet. And you know what they do? They just start training harder. Instead of backing down, letting that kid's body repair itself from being torn to pieces by this monster PR, and then starting to progress better toward that goal.